Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some pretty deep waters this time around, exploring the world of symbolism.
Symbolism. Always a fascinating topic.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this one. We're using G.I. Gurdjieff as our guide today.
Oh, excellent choice.
I know, right? We're going to be looking at some excerpts from his lectures where he talks about, well, how humanity has always been on this quest, right? For unity, this idea that everything's connected.
Yeah, that deep longing to understand the interconnectedness of all things.
Exactly. And Gurdjieff suggests that symbols are like a secret language, you know?
Hmm. A language that speaks to something beyond words.
Yeah, a language that can help us unlock that understanding of unity.
And he really delves into how symbols aren't just pretty pictures or decorations.
Yeah.
They hold a deeper meaning.
Right. They're not just arbitrary, there's something more to them, like a hidden knowledge waiting to be uncovered.
Exactly. A kind of knowledge that bypasses the limits of ordinary language.
Ooh, the limitations of language. That's a big one. What do you think Gurdjieff meant by that?
Well, he argued that words, while useful for everyday communication, can actually fall short when we're trying to grasp something truly profound.
Like, you can explain something till you're blue in the face, but the essence of it just doesn't translate.
Exactly. It's like try explaining the taste of an apple to someone who's never tasted one before.
Oh, I see. Like, you can describe it, the sweetness, the crispness, but the actual experience, the taste itself, that gets lost in the words, right?
Precisely. And Gurdjieff believed that symbols offer a more direct experience of knowledge. They go beyond the limitations of words and speak to something deeper within us.
So instead of telling us what to think, symbols invite us to feel, to experience the truth for ourselves.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
This is already making me rethink how I see symbols in my everyday life.
It can be quite an eye-opening shift in perspective, that's for sure.
Now, there's this concept that Gurdjieff uses a lot, the idea of the octave.
Yes, the octave. A fascinating concept.
I mean, I know it's a musical term, but I get the sense that he's using it in a much broader, almost universal sense.
Absolutely. He saw the octave as a universal law governing all sorts of processes, not just music. It's like a pattern, a blueprint for how things unfold, how energy moves and transforms.
Okay, so break it down for me. I'm familiar with the musical scale, do run me, all that. But how does that translate into a universal law?
Well, Gurdjieff saw the octave as a cycle with 7 distinct stages, each represented by a note in the musical scale. And he observed these same patterns in nature, in human behavior, even in spiritual development.
So are you saying there are like hidden octaves everywhere, like some kind of secret code waiting to be cracked?
More like recognizing a recurring pattern, this universal rhythm underlying many aspects of our experience.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But he also talks about these gaps in the octave, right? Now this is where it starts to get a little fuzzy for me.
Yes, the gaps. They're essential, you see. Just like in a musical octave where you have intervals between certain notes.
Right.
Gurdjieff believed that processes in life also have these points where things can get stuck, where an extra push is needed to move to the next stage.
So it's not just a smooth, continuous flow. There are these moments where we need to put in extra effort or maybe get help from something outside ourselves.
You got it.
Yeah.
And those gaps aren't necessarily obstacles. They're opportunities for transformation, for bringing in new energy and insights that wouldn't have been possible otherwise.
Interesting. So are you saying that understanding the octave can actually help us navigate challenges? Maybe even reach our full potential?
I'd say so. By recognizing those patterns of the octave, we can become more aware of those crucial turning points in our own lives.
Right. Like those moments where we might need to seek support or, change our approach, maybe tap into some hidden strength to move forward.
Exactly.
This is already giving me so much to think about. I love it. Like, instead of being passive passengers, we can become active participants in shaping our destinies, right?
I think that's a powerful way to look at it.
But Gurdjieff doesn't just talk about the octave in, like, abstract terms, right? He actually provides this visual representation, a symbol.
Yes, the symbol. A fascinating and complex representation, incorporating numbers, shapes, hidden meanings. It's a symbol that's captivated scholars and seekers for decades.
I bet. But before we dive into that, I'm curious about how he connected this idea of the octave to something a bit more concrete, like the human body, and even the cosmos.
Yes, he had a knack for connecting seemingly disparate things, revealing hidden patterns.
I like that example he gives about the transition between fa and mi in the octave and how it relates to digestion. That one always struck me as, well, Unusual, to say the least.
It is a striking example. So imagine the octave as a spiral staircase. Each step represents a stage in the octave, and just like climbing a staircase, there are moments where you need to exert a little extra effort to reach that next level.
Okay, I like that. I can visualize that.
Now,
So where does digestion fit into this staircase analogy?
well, Gurdjieff pointed out that the process of digestion, it isn't simply a passive one.
Right, right.
We take in food, but for it to be transformed into energy our bodies can actually use, we need the help of something external.
Okay, yeah.
Air, specifically oxygen.
Oh, of course. We need to breathe to live. So is that the external force helping us to bridge the gap in the octave?
Precisely. That moment where oxygen interacts with the food we've eaten, that's like the transition between fa and mai in the octave. It's a crucial step that requires something beyond our initial effort of, well, just eating.
Wow, that is a really cool way to look at it. It makes this abstract concept of the octave feel a lot more tangible, a lot more connected to our everyday experience.
It's all about finding those connections, isn't it?
Definitely. But what about the cosmos? How did Gurdjieff see the octave playing out on that grand scale?
He saw it in the evolution of stars, the formation of planets, these cycles of creation and destruction that govern the universe. Just like in our bodies, he believed that the cosmos also experiences these gaps in the octave, these points where new forces, new energies are needed to kind of propel evolution forward.
So the octave isn't just a model for personal growth then, it's a model for like universal evolution.
That's the beauty of it. It's a framework for understanding the universe and our place within it.
That's pretty mind-boggling when you think about it.
It is. And he didn't just theorize about this. He went deep into the mathematical underpinnings of the octave, showing how these same patterns could be found in the realm of numbers.
This is where I start to feel a little lost, to be honest. I'm more of a big picture person, not a math whiz. Can you explain the connection between the octave and mathematics in a way that even I can grasp?
Of course. So you see, Gurdjieff believed that the octave wasn't just a metaphor. It was based on precise mathematical principles. He was particularly fascinated by decimal fractions and how they relate to the structure of the octave.
Decimal fractions, like 0.142857 and so on. I confess, math isn't my strong suit. What do those have to do with the octave?
Well, remember how the octave has 7 stages plus the 8th one that restarts the cycle?
Yeah.
Gurdjieff noticed that when you divide a whole unit representing the full octave into 7 equal parts and express them as decimal fractions, a really fascinating pattern emerges.
Okay, a pattern. Do tell.
Each of those fractions, except for the last one, which completes the cycle, contains the same 6 digits in its decimal expansion, just arranged in a different order. It's really quite remarkable.
Wait, are you saying that there's like a hidden code in these decimals? A code that reflects the structure of the octave?
That's one way to think about it.
Yeah.
And this code, this repeating sequence of digits, is directly reflected in the geometric structure of Gurdjieff's symbol of the octave.
Oh, wow. So the lines and points in the symbol, they're not random, but they're actually based on these mathematical patterns?
Precisely. It's as if Gurdjieff is showing us that the laws governing music, the cosmos, and even our own personal growth are all intertwined. All expressions of a deeper mathematical harmony.
I am loving this. It's like we're looking at a blueprint for the universe. But how did Gurdjieff expect people to decipher all of this? Did he provide some kind of key? A decoder ring?
He believed that the symbol itself was the key.
Really?
By studying it, contemplating its geometry and the mathematical principles that it embodies, we could begin to unlock a deeper understanding of the octave and its influence on our lives.
So it's like a meditation tool almost, a visual prompt to help us connect these universal laws.
Exactly. Gurdjieff was all about self-discovery. He didn't want to just spoon-feed answers. He wanted to empower people to find their own truths.
I can definitely appreciate that approach. But I have to admit, I'm still struggling to see the practical application of all this. How does understanding decimal fractions and the geometry of a symbol actually help us in our daily lives?
That's a great question. And that's where Gurdjieff's idea of neutralizing the binary with the ternary comes into play.
Okay, here we go. This is the part I've been waiting for. Every time I read that phrase, it feels like a riddle wrapped in an enigma. What exactly did he mean by that?
Well, he started with the observation that we tend to experience the world in dualities, light and dark, good and bad, pleasure and pain.
Right, like that constant push and pull of opposites?
Exactly. And Gurdjieff suggested that getting stuck in this binary way of thinking can really limit our growth, keep us trapped in these cycles of reaction and limitation. He saw the ternary as a way to break free from that duality, to introduce a third element that could transform the whole equation.
Okay, I think I'm following so far, but I need an example. What would that third element look like in practice?
Imagine being stuck in a traffic jam. Your initial reaction might be frustration, anger, maybe even despair. That's the binary stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Ah, yeah, I know that feeling all too well.
But what if instead of getting swept up in those emotions, you consciously chose a different response?
Like, what? Putting on some music? Calling a friend?
Maybe? Or perhaps simply taking a deep breath, observing the feeling of frustration without judgment, and choosing to focus on something more positive. That shift in awareness, that deliberate choice to step outside the binary reaction, that's the ternary at work.
Oh, so the ternary isn't a specific action. It's more like a state of mind, a way of being in the world that allows us to transcend those limiting dualities.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that's where things get really interesting, because Gurdjieff believed that when we neutralize the binary with the ternary, we open ourselves up to a whole new level of experience, what he called transmutation into the quaternary.
Okay, now you're really testing my vocabulary. But I'm loving this. It's like we're taking a crash course in conscious evolution. What does transmutation into the quaternary even mean?
Think of it as alchemy. You take those two base elements, those opposing forces of the binary, introduce the catalyst of the ternary, that conscious choice, and through that interaction, something entirely new emerges.
So it's not just about overcoming challenges. It's about creating something entirely new, something that wouldn't have been possible without that initial struggle.
Exactly. It's like the lotus flower that blooms from the mud. That's the power of the quaternary.
Hmm.
And Gurdjieff believed that this wasn't just a personal phenomenon, it had implications for the evolution of consciousness itself.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground. From the limitations of language to the cosmic dance of the octave to this alchemical process of transformation, I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective, a new lens through which to view the world.
It's an incredible tapestry of knowledge, isn't it? But there's still one piece of the puzzle that we haven't fully explored yet. Gurdjieff's complex symbol of the octave.
Oh, that's right. We've talked about the math, the patterns hidden within the sample, but we haven't actually looked at it, have we?
Not yet.
I'm ready to dive into that visual representation now. Is there a way we can describe this symbol? Paint a picture for our listeners who can't see it.
It is a challenge to convey its complexity with just words alone. Imagine. Imagine a circle representing the wholeness of the octave. Now, within that circle, picture a series of interconnected lines and points, kind of forming this geometric pattern that seems, well, both precise and intricate.
Okay, I'm picturing it sort of like a cosmic spider web, but with a sense of mathematical order to it.
You're on the right track.
Right.
Each line and point in the symbol, they correspond to a specific element within Gurdjieff's system, representing not only the stages of the octave, but also the forces and influences that kind of shape its unfolding.
Oh, okay, I see. So the symbol isn't just a static representation of the octave. It's more like a dynamic map, maybe, showing the flow of energy, the interplay of sources, those points of transformation.
Exactly. And remember those decimal fractions we discussed earlier? The ones with the repeating digits?
Yeah.
Well, those patterns, they're encoded within the geometry of the symbol.
Wow.
It's like he's showing us that the laws that govern music, the cosmos, and even our own personal growth, they're all intertwined. All expressions of this deeper mathematical harmony.
This is amazing. It really is like looking at a blueprint for the universe, a visual representation of this hidden order underlying everything.
Yeah.
But how did Gurdjieff expect people to actually decode all this? Did he provide any instructions or guidance?
He believed that the symbol itself was the instruction.
Really?
He encouraged his students to study it, to contemplate its form, to meditate on its meaning. He saw it as a tool for self-discovery. A visual representation of that path to awakening.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about understanding the symbol intellectually. It's about experiencing it, allowing it to speak to us on a much deeper level.
You got it.
Yeah.
And Gurdjieff believed that the more we engage with the symbol, the more we start to see its reflections in our own lives, in the world around us, the patterns of nature, the rhythms of the cosmos.
I can definitely see how that could be a powerful practice. It's like he's giving us a new language, a new way of seeing and understanding the world. But it's not a passive process, is it? It requires effort, attention, a willingness to step outside our habitual ways of thinking.
You're absolutely right. Gurdjieff was very adamant that truth isn't something that's given to us. It's something we must actively seek, struggle for, even wrestle with at times. And the symbol of the octave, with all its complexity and hidden meanings, It's like a training ground for that struggle.
So it's not just about decoding the symbol, it's about decoding ourselves,
Yeah.
about unlocking our own potential for transformation and growth.
Beautifully put. And that's where I think the true power of Gurdjieff's teachings lies. It's not just about acquiring knowledge, it's about applying it, using it to transform our lives and ultimately contribute to the evolution of consciousness itself.
This has been such an incredible journey. We've explored the limitations of language, the universality of the octave, the power of the ternary, oh, and the mysteries of Gurdjieff's symbol. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective, a new lens through which to view the world. What final thought would you like to leave our listeners with today?
Well, Gurdjieff often said, if you want to be, you must do. I think that's a fitting reminder for us as we wrap up our deep dive today. Understanding these concepts is a great first step, but the real work begins when we put them into practice, you see. When we start to see the octave, the ternary, and the symbolism all around us, and most importantly, within ourselves.
So, a challenge to our listeners, don't just take our word for it. Explore these ideas for yourselves. Look for the patterns of the octave in your own lives. Experiment with neutralizing the binary with the ternary in your everyday experiences. Who knows, you might uncover some hidden truths. You might tap into some new levels of understanding. The journey awaits.